Welcome back. Now, the National Treasury has proposed a new national tax on online gambling revenue in South Africa, which is estimated to raise 10 billion rand for the state. Now, this proposal comes amid a local surge in online gambling, driven by economic hardship in the country. The head of the South African Online Responsible Gambling Association, Wayne Lurie, says a national online gambling tax without a national online gambling law is only a shortcut around the hard questions. He joins us now for greater perspective. Wayne, thanks so much for your time today. And let's start there, right? One of your biggest critiques is around the misalignment when it comes to regulation. But given how online gambling operates across borders and devices, is the provincial model still fit for purpose?
Okay, I mean, that's a compound question. So to answer your question sort of in two parts. First of all, the provincial model is constitutionally mandated, and that's what we are left to work with at this point in time, where the provinces do have autonomy within their own borders, provided it's within national policy, which, let's just assume for present purposes, it is within the realm of what is contemplated both in national and provincial. And the second part is it a suitable model? So to answer that question, I do not believe so. I believe our law is 30 years old. It's crying out for reform. It basically goes back to 1996 when the new constitution came in. It has had very little change since then. And we definitely need a reform, but I'm not altogether too positive about when or how this reform is going to come, given how long it's already taken.
So you do accept that, I guess, some form of national framework is needed here?
I believe that, I mean, in terms of how we stand with the Constitution currently, we need the national framework aligned with the provincial model. We can't wish away the provincial model. That's what the Constitution says, and the only way to change it is to receive a 66% majority vote from Parliament, which I would imagine is very highly unlikely. So the national framework needs to respect the provinces and not to overstep them and to work with them. But to say that we need reform as an overall concept is absolutely true.
And now, talking about reform and the tax that's been proposed, outside looking in, it does seem like industry is somewhat coming through guns blazing, whereas we're at the beginning of this process, right? And eventually Treasury will open up the proposal to industry as well as civil society members. Do you not trust the process?
No, it's not a case of mistrust of the process. I absolutely trust the process. I think what's happening is the speed of the process is probably where the mistrust lies. Okay. So just to give you a clue in that respect, in the 2004 National Act, which was a minor amendment on the 1996 Act, they contemplated that there should be a reform for interactive gambling to take place more or less within 3 years of the Act being promulgated. And in fact, that was very timely as Senator arrival. It came in 2008. There was a committee that sat for a year. At the time, I was involved with that committee, and we produced a 1,000-page report to the minister. Then the 2008 Amendment Act came out with very little meat on its bones, leaving it for regulations to be promulgated. Now, we sit in 2025, on the cusp of 26, without these regulations. So I think it's probably safe to say I do mistrust the process in terms of the length of time that it's taken, and we really are in need of an expedited process to now address all of these issues, because 30 years have passed and technology has definitely accelerated way ahead, and the legislation needs reform to deal with it.
And we can't deny the kind of impact this has had on society, when, I mean, industry has, of course, faced criticism around not adequately addressing youth gambling and the use of SASSA and NSFAS proceeds on betting sites. Just your thoughts around that, as you, of course, sit on the Responsible Gambling Association.
So I'm going to use this opportunity to correct the acronym. It's Safe and Responsible Online Gaming Association. This is the newly formed association which I currently head, in addition to my day job as a gambling attorney, a gambling regulatory attorney. And why it's not South African responsible is because we are actually looking to a continental initiative, and even beyond that, to address specifically and at its core responsible gambling or problem gambling, as you might want to call it, to put limits in people's hands, to bring back the entertainment value of gambling, and to offer free counseling to problem gamblers, if you want to call them that, or people that are suffering from an addiction problem around gambling. I will absolutely say that there is an increase in it. Together with the increase in activity, there's always been a level of responsible gambling problem surrounding gambling from the beginning. There's always been those people where the line is quite blurred between entertainment and addiction. And definitely with the growth of the area comes a growth in the problem. It's proportional. So definitely needs to be addressed. I think part of the challenge we again face is the National Gambling Board were mandated to provide a self-exclusion database. I'm talking South African context specifically now. They were mandated to provide a self-exclusion database where we could go as citizens and very easily exclude ourselves across the board, from land-based casinos, betting shops, and of course online. And again, 20 years have passed and nothing has emerged. They tell us that they're going to be doing this. So in the meantime, the industry has adopted the approach that self-regulation might be the quickest way to market, most feasible way to market. And we are working on an exclusion database, which we hope to offer through an app to punters throughout South Africa to look at exclusion methods, both in terms of an overall exclusion, time-limited exclusion, payment-limited exclusion. So we are looking to put these tools in the hand of the public.
And that's what I was about to ask you when you talk about an industry that's self-regulated and how then you track harmonization when it comes to those rules and regulation, especially with the growth of these offshore sites within the country.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, now that's an interesting thing. We going from one very pertinent topic to another here. Let's just pause there for a second to talk about the sites coming in from outside the country, because this is something that seems to be largely ignored in the media around online gambling in South Africa. Online gambling in South Africa, for the most part, in terms of the licensed brands from the provinces, is online betting via bookmakers, which extends to what we see as the casino-style games. So they're 100% legitimate and legal. But then what happens is you have offshore operators who present online casinos, which the games might look very similar at the end of the day, but there's no regulation, there's no oversight, there's no taxes. We don't even know if the games are fairly weighted. There's technical standards that the local operator has to comply with. He has to use approved product that comes from a licensed manufacturer, and none of this exists with the offshore operator. And unfortunately, the National Board, if we want to say something positive about the National Gambling Board, they are trying to address the problem head on, but they're a little bit scattered in their approach, and they might be looking too internally without looking at the external threat to our nation in terms of illegal offshore operators. And that's something which I think falls ideally within their mandate, because they protect the national border from foreign incursion in terms of illegitimate product. Definitely a focus, definitely something that needs to be, and it needs to be done in cooperation with the correct authorities. For instance, South African Police Services, the Hawks, the NPA, those type of agencies that understand how to unlock the mechanism of long arm of the law into foreign jurisdictions.
Maybe you can walk me through some of the models or solutions that industry is suggesting to deal with the social ills as well with the offshore gambling sites. I mean, we do know that high taxes can push consumers into the illegal market, working with the illegal operators.
Right. So dealing with the social ills, there has been a move toward a type of gambling, a type of advertising that says, not quite that old line that's used time and time again about winners know when to stop, but to say, gamble for your entertainment, set yourself limits, to give tools into the hands of the punter that allows them to set limits. So those type of initiatives are useful. Re-emphasizing the entertainment value of gaming and online gambling versus, for some sort of generation of income, which is unfortunately a misnomer where people see it as a form of income. And as far as the offshore operators go, the banks need to be engaged, and I think the industry has sort of become tired of waiting for government to do it. So there's been a lot of engagement with the banks to look at payment channels, payment rails, as they call it, in and out of the country, how the money is going out, whether it's going to gaming sites, if it's coming in, to make sure it's diverted back to the National Gambling Board, which have a sort of illegal funds recovery trust, which is supposed to be applied back to social good. Above are other methods in terms of education. Definitely something needs to be done about advertising. The industry has realizes that, and those that are responsible in that respect are looking at when they advertise, how they advertise, what they advertise. You won't see, I think as a general proposition and optimistically, you won't see these type of advertisements that show people being enriched by the press of a button, or these massive winnings and that type of advertising. There is a maturity in the advertising that's taking place. And of course, the Advertising Regulatory Board have made clear that they are going to be looking at the rules surrounding gambling advertising. And in fact, I think are holding a workshop sometime in January, which the industry and the responsible members of it will participate in. All at the same time, leaving the offshore operators, the illegal operators, to their own devices. And those are the ones that very often will use South African branding to present themselves almost as if they're a South African institution or establishment to unsuspecting punters.
All right, Wayne, unfortunately, we have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time and just taking us through what's playing out in the industry. It'll also be interesting to see how everything pans out as we move forward. Now, that was Wayne Lurie, head of the South African Responsible Online Gambling Association.